I interviewed John Ferrara actually the other day. So he's a lovely guy. So that was fun. And
Nimble.
yeah. And boy, is he getting some wins now with Microsoft. So they just shut down their own simple CRM, and he's it globally. So yeah.
Oh, you mean it's going through a bad time?
No, it's going well. So 200,000 have been switched over to his platform that sits on Microsoft. So anyway, it's good.
Oh, okay. Good.
All right. Okay, let's rock and roll.
Let's go.
And okay. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Jeff Bullis Show. Now today we have with me Emric Ermolt from Agorapulse in Paris. Now, before we get to chat, I just want to introduce Emric. He's a serial entrepreneur. We seem to be interviewing a few of those at the moment. And he's had 20 years experience in social media and software as a service type businesses. He's a CEO and co-founder of Agorapulse, agorapulse.com, a Paris-based social media management software launched in 2011. Agorapulse is currently being used by more than 17,000 users across 180 countries. Welcome to the show, Emric, and I've been so looking forward to having a chat with you and finding out what motivates you and what your story is. And we met actually in San Diego for the first time. What was it, about 7 or 8 years ago, I think now. So I got to shake hands with Emric, I think it was at the bar, and big smile, and he's just a fabulous Parisian gentleman that I've got to really know well. And he's got a big heart, and it's been such a privilege to actually spend and hang out time with him, both in Paris and around the world in different spots. And we've become friends, and I feel I'm privileged to have him as a friend. So welcome to the show, Emric, and thank you for taking the time. So tell me a little bit about your serial entrepreneurism.
Well, thank you. First, thank you for having me. I hope I don't disappoint after this amazing introduction. It was 7 years ago, I think we met. It was at the bar, the Marriott Grand Marquis in San Diego, and we were having drinks with Jay Bear at that table.
That's
I
right.
remember that very clearly.
Yep.
So it's funny you mentioned what's with this serial entrepreneurism. Of course, before I had some level of success, some kind of success, I was looking at people who call themselves serial entrepreneurs, and it seemed like unattainable. I thought, this guy didn't do one company, he did 2, 3. Whoa, how can you be so amazingly good that you're like serial entrepreneur? For me, that was semi-god. Like you can't do that.
Okay.
But actually, I am that because I failed a lot. So being a serial entrepreneur doesn't mean you have to be serially successful. You can be serially failing. That's fine too. You can still call yourself serial entrepreneur. I had 2 companies I ran. I didn't start them. I didn't own them, but I run them and got the startup. One of them in the hip replacement device. Can you believe that?
Right. Okay.
And one I started in 2000, which actually had the same name and the same technology, but was 3 different businesses over time, because the first one was basically a social network. It was called Affinities, launched in July of 2000. And it was 4 years before Facebook. It had the vision of Facebook, like, don't tell people IDs are worth anything, because they are not. Our execution was poor. The country was not the right one, and it was too early, so it didn't work out. We pivoted that to a B2B play where we try to sell that technology to businesses, so they can have their own social network. But in the early days, that was for collaboration work collaboration purposes.
Yep.
we did a little bit of business. Like it was before Yammer and all these things. I
Hmm.
forgot the name of the platforms that emerged out of that afterward, but Yammer is the name that comes to mind.
Yep.
Um, like internal social networks for companies for work and collaborating purposes. And then we pivoted that to create your own social network for marketing purposes. So that was the third pivot, no, the second pivot, the third phase of that
Right.
business. So you're basically talking 2000 to 2001 and a half. Then, 2001, 2 until 2006, 7, and then 6, 7 until 9, 10. But those are the three phases.
Okay.
Every of those pivot have failed. The first one failed miserably, not a
Right.
single penny of sales. The second one, I don't know, probably got up to 40K annual, like annual revenue, like
Right.
ridiculous. I
Right.
think we make that in a day or two now. That
Yeah.
was our year of revenue at the time, and the third got up to 150K of annual revenue. So all of them, you can definitely qualify them as complete
Well,
failures.
that's part of the journey, isn't it? Really, that uh, being willing to try and execute, coming up with the idea. So, where did the idea come from, Emmerich, in terms of a social network in 2000?
Social networking 2000. If you want to have a good laugh. So first of all, in 2000, starting an internet business, nobody knew anything about what it looked like, and so
Yeah.
there was no book um, on lean startups. There was no information on how it's being done. So everybody was trying to figure it out, and
Yep.
everybody thought their ideas was worth billions. And hey, look at my PowerPoint. It's $100 million idea here on that slide, and obviously
Yep.
none of that was true. The initial idea was a mix of I wanted to do something, and Ben, my co-founder and CTO, wanted to do something else. And obviously, I was a business lawyer at the time. I couldn't build anything. He could. So I couldn't force my idea on him because he was not excited and passionate by my idea. He was excited and passionate about his idea. So
Right.
the one thing we did, which is the worst thing on earth, is we kind of forced and mixed our two ideas into something. So
Right.
my idea was basically something for alumni of universities and schools, which by the way Facebook started as.
Right.
But there was
Okay.
also at the time classmates.com, and there were a bunch of websites that were trying to be a platform for people who've been alumni of schools and universities. And Ben's idea was a way for people to give their opinion on music and books and movies and stuff like that.
Okay.
So we plug both ideas into a product. It's the worst way to create a company,
Yeah.
or like
It's almost
you
almost
do
like a
that today.
yeah, almost like a
Yeah,
bastard child, really, wasn't it? Really, it's like you just
absolutely. It's
it was,
worse
or
than that.
a hybrid
Yeah,
of two ideas, which with no focus. Yeah.
yeah, but it's
So
not a child that's going to live long, so you don't want to have that kind of child.
no, that's a shame. So was MySpace around then?
Nope.
Okay. So all right. So and so that was
Well,
the first one. Yeah.
yeah, not when we started. It became around after 2000, I think 2 or 3, something like that.
Okay.
Probably 2 or 3. But in 2000 and early 2001, it was not around.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the that's the initial. So you say it's the journey to fail. I mean, failing for that long, I don't recommend, frankly.
No, it would have been
But
tiring.
again,
Mm.
it is tiring. It's been exhausting. It was exhausting,
Yeah.
and also I don't think you would be I would yell at you if you were failing for so long, because I would tell you, okay, I had the right to fail in 2000 because there was no information out there, so I couldn't know I was not doing the right things.
Yeah.
In 2020, it's easy to know you're doing the right things or not doing the right things. So listen to a podcast and the entrepreneurs that you interview, listen to 4 or 5 of them, and then you figure out, okay, here are the basics. I
Yep.
need to talk to my potential customers. I need to really understand them and their pains. I need to come up with something novel that really will make a difference, and not like the fifth version of the same thing. Like at the time, we had no idea. No one knew anything, and we had to build everything from the ground up. There was no Amazon AWS. There was no recurring payment system. There was
Yep.
no credit card processing system. There was nothing. It was basically had to build everything. So failing was like the norm. It was easy. Success was super hard.
Yeah. So you've had this like nearly 8-9 years of failing and pivoting, and you must have been exhausted. And I
Yeah,
suppose.
we got to 2011
Mm-hmm.
as a from 2000 until 2011 as a failure. That's 11 years. That's long. And then and then the concept of Agorapulse came out of a conference. So we were still trying to sell Affinities, which was a white label, build your own social network for marketing purposes. And I was speaking at conferences, marketing conferences, especially here in France, trying to convince those large brands to build your own social network. Hey, you are retail store selling scrapbooking gears. You should do a scrapbooking community and gather all the scrapbooking fans
Mm-hmm.
into an online place. So like if you own that community, then you own your client, your customer. That was the kind of stuff I was trying to do. And I was at that conference speaking about use cases and how brands have leveraged communities and stuff like that. And at the end, a woman comes to me and she said, that was a very interesting talk. Do you do Facebook contests and games and apps? And I said, yes, absolutely. We absolutely did not. I had no idea what the Facebook API was made of, but I said, yes, of course we do. Yeah, let's organize a meeting next week and I'll take the brief. And at the time, nobody was doing that. Very few people were doing that. So I
Right.
go to the office and I tell my co-founder, hey, Ben, can you look at that Facebook API thing? Because maybe we have a client, we can make some money. And we desperately need to make some money. And they learned it and they got to it. So yeah, I think I got figured out. I think we could do something, got the brief, they built the app. The app was a success. Then another companies, came to us, and a bank, I remember, built an app for them, was a success. And then we started building apps on Facebook in a successful way, making some money. But then everybody started to do that as well. And that was a service business. We hated that. And we saw Wildfire, an American company, coming out in the end of 2009, early 2010,
Mm-hmm.
with a platform that was doing that for a monthly fee. And they said, this is exactly what we want to do. I mean, we don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do bespoke development for brands and businesses. We want to do a platform. We want to build a SaaS product. That's what we've always done. That's what we enjoy doing. That's what we're made for. Like we're not made for. We don't want to do an
Yep.
agency. That was not our dream.
It's hard to
So
scale, isn't it?
yeah, it's super hard to scale. And again, it was not our dream. I was a business lawyer. I was making a fortune selling services in early 2000. Why would I make a tenth of that to sell online projects? It makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It made no sense to me. So we did that. We built that, and we launched it in late 2011, Q4 2011. But just the interesting thing, I will never forget. I told Ben, I said, well, Ben, we've been struggling for 11 years. I'm fed up. I'm exhausted. I'm burned out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do this Agorapulse thing because it's, there's a new breath of fresh air. There's a new project. I'm excited again. So like I find new energy to get into something else.
Yep. Yep.
But by the time we were paying ourselves like minimum wage or close to that, and we've been paying ourselves minimum wage for a long time. We'd been, and I told him I give myself a year to get to 49,000 a month. So we have to find the let's say the average price point for clients will be $49 a month.
Mm-hmm.
We have to find 1,000 client in a year. It shouldn't be that complicated. The demand is there. The solution is good. We'll find those clients. I had no idea how, but we'll find them. It's probably easy. You put that online and it works and they come to you, right? You put that online and they come. Isn't that how it works?
Yeah.
And
Build it and they will come. That's exactly
yeah,
how
of
it works.
course.
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
exactly how it works. That's the recipe.
You sit on the
So we
sofa and
did,
wait for it to roll in. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you watch them come in.
Yeah.
And so we built it, and I told him I give myself a year. If after a year we're still struggling and fighting to get minimum wage, I'm done. I'll find a normal job, and I get my life back. And um, it took us 3 years to get to 49K a month. So I
Right.
was always giving myself deadlines, and
Mm-hmm.
if I'm still struggling by that date, I stop. That's too hard. But then the problem, you get to that date and there's progress, and you can see the progress. It's too slow, it's too small, it's not what you need to have a decent life, but still, it's freaking progress. You can't
Yes.
you can't stop something that's going up and to the right, even if up and to the right is very slightly up and to the right.
So there was a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. So I kept
Okay.
going, and 49K took 3 years, but then it took a year to get to 100K. Then it took another year to get to 250, and since then, some years have been up and some years have been down. The growth has not been always amazing, but we've always had growth, and we've always been profitable since 2015. and and yeah, and now I'd say, after you've struggled that much, I'd say life is good. I mean, it's good to pay yourself a decent amount of money every month.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to drive a car that's paid by your company. It's good to have time off and vacation that you can enjoy without stressing out because you don't know how you're going to pay. You're going to do payroll when you get back. Like, all that is good. It feels very, very good. So
Yeah. Well, it's I've been watched your journey, and we've actually been worked and collaborated over the years as well, and which has been fun. What were some of the biggest challenges in terms of Agorapulse? Getting it to a critical mass where you actually could start paying yourself a decent wage and profitable. What were your biggest challenges?
well, the big challenge for us is that we were bootstrapped, so we didn't raise money. So and in front of us, we had two companies, one called Hootsuite, which raised $265 million total, and one called Sprout Social that raised 100 and, well, right now, 200 and something $1 million. It's
Wow.
currently IPO'd on the Nasdaq.
Mm-hmm.
So the two main companies we compete with and competed with raised a shitload of money, and they have a shitload of people working in marketing, and they're spending a ton of money on Google Ads and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So it's hard because they're overwhelming the space with their presence. And they're good. I mean, they have money, so they build a good product much faster than you can build a good product with your no money and your 3 developers.
Yep.
Um, and we had and we started with Facebook contests and promotions, as I said, which is a shitty business model. Was shitty and still is. And so we had to pivot from Facebook contests and promotion into Facebook community management, i.e., comment management, message management, reporting, statistics, publishing. And then we had to pivot, not pivot, but evolve that into, okay, Facebook's not enough. They want Twitter, they want
Yep.
LinkedIn, they want the rest. So you have to build. And instead of all that taking 2 years, it takes 4, because they're good, they work fast, they move fast and break things, but it's only 3, 4 of them, 5 of them, not 45 or 60 of them.
Yep.
So that was a huge challenge, like accepting the constraints of not having money and having a very, very, very small team, and having a ton of things you need to build to at least get a decent product to convince people to give you money. So that was a huge challenge. But, and that's thanks to you people, if you have the right people, they will stick around, and
Yep.
they will stick with you, and eventually you'll build what needs to be built. And when you're super small and have amazing, immense constraints, at least you're not wasting any of that time you have in your hands. So
Mm-hmm.
anything you do is crucial, is vital, and anything. So I, it's a blessing and a curse to not have a lot of money and a lot of people, because
Yep.
you cannot waste any of it. Where the big guys, trust me, they waste a ton of it, like a ton, like
Yep.
millions of dollars are being thrown to the bin because they have so much of it.
Yeah, I've had stories that hundreds of millions of dollars have been raised, and they go into beautiful offices in the middle of downtown San Francisco. Um, and you're right, it's a lot of waste, and you've basically had to be very, very efficient.
Mm.
Um, so apart from the money raising or sustaining yourself financially and bootstrapping, what are some of the other things, like how about building the team? Was that difficult, like finding the right people to help you, like whether it's programmers, because you basically got two things you really got to do, don't you? You got to, and I've talked about it before, is you really got two arms races going on. Number one, you've got to keep building the tech. It never stops. Because someone else is building tech on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
and then you've got the distribution. How do you actually get your message out there? So some people do it, sales people on the ground. Some people do it via marketing and other marketing efforts. So in terms of those two challenges, the tech and also getting distribution, what were some of the breakthroughs with distribution and getting your voice out on a minimal budget?
That's a great question. Well, number one, all of us have to find what works best for us, and there's a lot of work there. We are self-service. We're not enterprise, so we're not sales-based. We cannot go out and sell our stuff because our average revenue per account is 130 euros, 40 euros right now. So like it's $155 per month. That does not allow you to go out or call out people and do outbound marketing or have a bunch of salespeople who are super expensive and will take 6 months to get contracts in. So at that $150 a pop, it doesn't work. So when you're self-service, what you need to do is you need to create inbound strategies. Like you need to make people come to you. Like you can't go to them. You need to make them come to you. The first thing you need to avoid is look at what your bigger competitors are doing and just don't do it. Like just don't touch it. So if they're doing a ton of Google ads, just don't do Google ads. It's probably not for you. If they're doing a ton of paid marketing of any kind, just don't do it as well. If they're doing a lot of sales, and don't do that. If they have freemium, don't do that. I don't know. Like, think about what doesn't make sense. What they do because they have the money and the resources. This is what you shouldn't do, and try to do the opposite or something completely different. You have to be disruptive in the way you approach your distribution, and so that's the first thing. That's what I think we did. You also have to be conscious that there will be channel that will take you from 0 to 1 million a year. Then it will stop working, or it will flatten, it will cap out. So you have to then think about a second channel that, or maybe two. It will take you from 1 to 3 or 4, and then it will flat out, and then another one. So you constantly have to reinvent how you're going to go to the next step. So how we got to from 0 to 2, 3, 2 was mostly based on content. But in 2012, content was working. There was not an overwhelming amount of content in our space, so we could grow awareness and convince people to try us and use us and pay us to get to $1.52 million a year. Today, no fucking way. It's impossible. If you were trying to do today what we did 8 years back then, you wouldn't succeed. You would fail because nobody would hear you. Like, there's too much noise. It's too crowded.
It is.
The way we've done it. Maybe there would be another content strategy. I don't know. But in the social media sphere, I don't think so. So this is what's difficult. Is like, you have to be creative. You have to be disruptive. But it has to be adapted to what's going on
your
now.
Business. Yep.
Yeah, and your business and the state of your ecosystem.
And the state of the ecosystem. Today. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was that? What were the creative ideas that helped you break through? And
I don't know how creative it is, but it was an idea. I thought we're uniquely positioned to do that, and I can pull that up. And the idea was not that complicated, but I'm a pretty social person, so I have an easy. I have I'm easygoing. When you meet with me, it's easy to feel good and have a conversation. You don't feel like you need to protect yourself, or wow, this guy is talking to me in a weird way. I don't feel safe. Like, I'm the opposite of that. And I went to a lot of those conferences. That's where we met 7 years ago. So I met a lot of people, and I think they found, and I was the French guy with a
You
a
were.
bit of a French accent, and that's exotic. That's fun. People from America, they don't meet that many French people on at work on a daily basis. So it's kind of unique to them that I am who I
Mm.
am. In the early days, I thought that was a um, not a debt. Shit, forgot the word. Um,
It was unique, I suppose.
no, I thought it was not good. It was something negative. I forgot there is a word for that.
Okay, you thought it's a
Um,
liability.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the word I'm
Okay.
looking for.
Okay.
That's like a liability. I thought it was a liability that I was French, but
Yeah.
actually it was not. It was actually an asset.
Yep.
And after I went to all these conferences, I made friends, and you were one of them. But John Newmer, Jay Baer, like all these people, Kim Garst, a lot of people. Steve Rayson, you mentioned him. They became
Yep.
friends, and I had a bunch of friends, and I was the CEO of that company, and no CEO of our competition were friends with them because they didn't go to meet with them. They didn't care. They were big enough, too big. They were making too much
Yeah.
money there. It had too big of a team. So like it made no sense for a Hootsuite CEO or Sprout Social CEO to go and meet with you and build a relationship with you, or like 20, 30 other people. It
Yep.
worked for me, and I enjoyed it. Number one, you have to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, don't
Yeah. Yeah.
use that channel.
Well, you're right. You are a very social person, and I think that's one of the reasons that I enjoyed catching up with you. And you were French, so you stood out. You had that
Yeah,
strange accent, like I've got a strange Aussie accent.
yeah,
So yeah, you took your uniqueness that you thought was a
nice.
liability
Yeah,
and turned it into an asset, because it really was an asset. You just didn't know it. So and I agree. I never met anyone else. I haven't met anyone from Hootsuite or whatever. Or Sprout, but I've met you, and we became friends, and so we worked together to help you grow the business. So that's what's been fun over the years.
yeah. And in the early days, I would email you and a bunch of other friends and say, "Hey, I wrote that blog post," and you would tweet it, share it, put a link to it. It's like small things like that. But in the early days, those small things were worth
Incremental.
gold to me. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we created the ambassador program, and we started to make that professionalize those
Yep.
relationships and do things in a more organized way. Hired someone to do that. So that's always been the one thing we've done better than anybody else. And obviously now that we're going past
Yep.
10 million a year, we have to reinvent ourselves again and find new channels and new
Okay.
creativities.
Yeah. So business can be quite a tough gig, and trying to balance family, your own personal life, and a business. How do you do that? Do you have a morning routine? Actually, you've told me before. You don't do mornings very well. That's why we're doing it at 10 o'clock at night in Paris. Um, so, what's your routine for the day that sustains you to keep that sort of? And sometimes balance is the wrong word to use. Sometimes you just got to double down and get stuff done, and it's long days. So, what do you do?
I For all these years, I had no balance. It was all work.
Yep.
It was it's not 24/7 because you cannot do 24/7, but it was definitely 12 hours a day. It was definitely a lot on the weekend. Not all the weekend, I'm not gonna lie, but I did take some time off during the weekend. But like I probably worked 8 hours during the weekend, the whole
Okay.
weekend.
Yep.
I went to bed at 3, 4 a.m. You
Wow.
know,
Okay.
on my computer, being obsessed by an email, a blog post, and whatever it was.
Yep.
So no, and nothing fancy really. It was just hard work, and I was listening to, and now I'm listening to or reading, the founder of Basecamp, who keeps saying life doesn't have to be crazy at work, and you can work 7 hours a day and be happy. Yes, I can do that now, Jeff. Now I can do that. But
Yeah.
at the time, no, it was impossible. I couldn't, because I
Mm.
was on my own trying to figure out everything, sales, support, marketing,
Technology.
distribution,
Yep.
content, blog posts, social media, all me. Like, how can you figure out all these things with no money, bootstraps, working 7 hours a day, 5 days a week. Don't fool yourself. It's impossible. You have to
Yeah.
work a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe if you've already done it and you have a little bit of money on the side and you're not poor like I was, maybe you can, be more relaxed. But I was not relaxed because I had to survive. And when you have to survive, you know what? Balance does not matter. What matters is finding a way out. Finding which direction you need to take in that dark tunnel to see the light at some point.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, not a lot of work-life balance for a long time. I do now. So like there is light at the end of the tunnel if you make it work and you make enough money. I'm
Mm.
taking 5-6 weeks vacation every year, and I'm kite surfing, as you know, and I'm
Yep.
having fun and going to the Caribbean in 2 weeks with my family. I do, but at the time, none.
Yep.
Do I have advice about this? Well, the one piece of advice I have is if work-life balance is important to you, if your family life is really important to you, you probably shouldn't start a company because you're going to
Yep.
suffer too much. That's why I'm happy I did start my first company before I had kids. It's probably a good thing because once you have several kids, I would feel like shit today if I had to work 12 hours a day and 8 hours every weekend with my 6-year-old who is constantly asking me for daddy, can we play with this? Can we play with that? I do want to spend time with him. So when you're in the midst of those initial years of, I have to find traction, I have to find market fit, I have to figure things out, and I have no idea how I'm going to do that. People can tell you you shouldn't work a lot. You should work on the right things. It's not about working a lot. It's about working right or working smart. This is great on paper, but the reality is you don't know what's smart and what's right. So you have to work a lot so you can figure out what's right, what you should be working on, right? You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
you have to waste a lot of time working for things that won't work to find out, oh, I did all these things during those 12 hours. Only those 2 hours was productive. Okay, let's try to replicate that tomorrow. But
Yep.
in order to figure it out, you have to do a lot to get to the right things.
Yeah. It's. I was listening to an interview with Gary Keller from the One Thing book fame, and the CEO of I think the world's biggest real estate company, and he talked about he has. So the One Thing I thought was about a book, but I discovered that the One Thing, and he has this just way of living his life, both in business, especially in business, and especially even in life and family. He said, "What's the one thing that will actually make my life easier or make some task unnecessary?" And I think you've sort of described it as just 2 hours a day is something that you were working on that actually made a difference. So it's, the one thing that will make the rest of the day easier. In other words, getting that hard thing out of the way. And number two, you might discover along the way that there's actually a bunch of things that are actually unnecessary. And I went, wow, that is just such a philosophy that I've actually started trying to weave into my day, going, okay, so there's one thing I really need to do today. Instead of putting it off to the end of the day, let's get it done now. And then the rest of the day is going to be easier. And then discover the other stuff is actually unnecessary. So then the other one he uses, which is some stuff tough, he uses red light, green light. In other words, if you get a shut door or a red light, don't try and knock it down. If you get a green light, something's working, double down. And I thought, wow, there's two incredible insights. And you've just described, essentially, that's what you've discovered, is there's 2 hours during the day that is important that you really do need to get done. So it's interesting to hear. So what, the other thing I'm going to ask you is, now you're sort of at this level now. How large is the company now, Emmerich? Like how many employees?
80 something, 83 maybe.
Okay, right.
And
Okay.
and 11 million of annual recurring revenue.
Okay. So, and you basically, from 2015 on, it's been a lot easier journey for you. So
November of 2015, we broke even, and on the during the week we broke even, I booked a 3-week vacation on the beach in Brazil just to congratulate myself.
Okay, so Well, you got to reward yourself, don't you? At some stage, saying,
Oh yeah.
what's all this about? What am I doing this for? So during the last, was it nearly 10 years now, isn't it really? So what were there times you felt like giving up? Like,
Oh yeah.
right. Tell me a little bit
Oh
about
yeah.
that.
I felt about giving up several times. I mean, many times, many times. It for years and years and years, it really felt like I was in a tunnel,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really, really dark. And I knew there was light somewhere, but I didn't know if I should go forward or backward. Or left or right. Like I had no idea. That's why, I run back and I run back forward, and then go left and go right, and that's a lot of waste of time.
Yep.
But at the same time, you have to try all these directions to eventually see, oh, I tried all these many different directions. It took me months and months and months. But once when I was doing this one, I saw a little bit of light. So like that's the way I'm gonna go.
Yep.
And that's why you're in a dark tunnel. You don't know where's the exit and where's the light. You have to run and run a lot and exhaust yourself running to try to see where that light could be.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's it's hard on the morale. I mean, it really was. It really was. So I had good friends, and I had gigs on the side to make some money, so I could at least get some money, because I was getting very little during all these years.
Yeah.
And I don't recommend doing that, because it was a bit too hard, really. Um, but I recommend having mentors and coaches, or people who can help you, who can give you advice to save you time, and maybe raising a little bit more, and pay you something.
Right.
So like it's not the end the end game is not to suffer, or to be a hero, or or
Yeah.
um,
So
the end game is,
yeah. So what's so you mentioned the word mentors. Is there any mentors and people that helped you along the way that you're able going, shit, this is hard. Should I keep going? Do I pivot? Or just try to work it out? Is there some people that you turn to that really?
yeah. I have a good friend who is an entrepreneur, but he lives in Florida. He was already at the time, and he's still today, super rich. He made a fortune in real estate, but he was a very simple man. He was a mason, so he was basically building house when he was 16. And
Right.
one day he bought a house, he renovated it, and he rented it, and he realized that the amount of the rent was half of his salary as a mason. He said, "Fuck it, I'm going to buy another house, and I'll make as much money as I'm working 8 hours a day right now." And so, he built houses and rented them. And so it was a great friend, because he was super simple. I love people who are simple.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not crazy about people who are too intellectual and things gets complicated and complex, and like I'm not sure I'm following.
Yep.
This guy was really, really, everything was basic and simple. And he kept telling me, "Oh, I have a swimming pool, but who cares? Once you have a swimming pool, you don't swim anymore. Oh, I have a Ferrari in my garage, but once you have it, you don't drive it anymore." Like, and he kept telling me all that stuff doesn't matter, and he educated me on the fact that money is not the important things to pursue, and
Yep.
all you need is to be passionate about what you do and to love what you do. Everything else doesn't matter. So he was a good mentor for my philosophical approach of life and
Yep.
entrepreneurship. And he definitely was helpful, trying to tell me, "Yeah, I know how hard it is, but hang in there. Eventually, I know you have the energy. Eventually, something will come up." So it may be wishful thinking, but it made me get back again, get
Mm.
back on track again. But he was in real estate, so he couldn't help me build an online business, because he didn't know how to do it. And I haven't had mentors for that, which I regret. I would have loved to have mentors for that. I have now. I have a coach now, and what this coach is helping me with would have been life saving at the time, but I just didn't have the money
Yeah.
or the network to get one.
Yeah, and that's sometimes hard. A lot of people, their inspiration doesn't come from a person. Sometimes it just comes from books. Um, and I suppose I've never really had any mentors in the space, because when I started out too, who was a blogger who was doing digital publishing. I just watched, I suppose, some other people around the world and what they were doing, and read a lot of books and read a lot of blog posts really that inspired me. But I totally agree with you in terms of just trying to keep things as simple as possible, and love what you do. And when I started out, in 2009, it didn't feel like work. I was essentially writing an essay a day. So it was, but I was just so curious about this unfolding social media world, and I observed people's obsessive behavior. I went, there's something really going on here. And that behavior was not just on Facebook, it was on Twitter, it was everywhere. And everyone was chasing the shiny new toys in the business world around it. So this maybe raises a question then about where are we today in social media? I'd be interested in where you think it's maybe going, and also maybe where it is at the moment. So can you tell me a bit about your thoughts on the social media ecosystem as it stands today? As we know, back in 2013, 2014, the organic traffic from Facebook basically just started to disappear. A lot of businesses that were built around organic Facebook traffic just almost disappeared over the next 6 to 12 months. So where's social media today, and also where do you think it's maybe going?
Well, a couple of things, couple of thoughts on that. First of all, I am no social media expert anymore. Like I'm a business, being a CEO expert, what it takes, not expert, but I'm a constant learner. But I could tell you about what it means to be running a business, being a CEO, being a leader, building alignment within a company. All that kind of stuff is the stuff I'm learning every day and I'm working on every day. I'm not working on social media or my own product. No, I have a product team who does that much better than I do. So that's the first thing I wanted to say.
I totally get that. I totally get that, Emmerich. So it's
The second thing is that I don't use social media anymore. I personally, for my personal needs, I moved. So I use it, but it's very, very sporadic, And the reason is I realized at one point, and again, that's part of the journey of what I want to do during my days, what I want my life to be about, how I want to use my free time, which is not, I don't have much. I realized that every time, and I have a life that's easy to put on Facebook and Instagram because I travel all the time. I go kite in sexy, exotic places. So like it would be easy for me to put amazing posts on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. But I realized every time I do that, because I'm a social person, I felt compelled to go and engage with the people who were engaging with my content. Okay. So every time I was posting something, I said, oh shit, 15 people are going to come and say, wow, amazing, where are you? Enjoy your vacation or have a safe trip, like normal, like of course. And that's great. But I got to a point where I said, I don't want to post that thing and then feel for the next 2 hours that I have to go constantly check and be polite and reply. And I'm just creating burden for myself. Why am I doing this?
Exactly. I totally get it. And I've actually turned off all notifications on my social platforms. I'm not posting anywhere near as much. Maybe I should, because it's important for awareness and building a personal brand. But I suppose we're 11 years in, and I'm a little tired of it. Basically, we automate a lot of what we do now. Let the team look after a lot of it. Like you, I get introduced sometimes as a social media expert, and I almost cringe because I'm not. I really, part of me, my next part of the journey is actually, learning to be a better business person, a better entrepreneur. And that's one of the reasons we're doing the show. And also to actually double down on relationships. And that's why we started the Jeff Buller Show, is because I just wanted to actually have those conversations with fabulous people and help other people.
To answer your question, eventually,
Okay.
I give that a lot of thought because I built a business that's built on social media. So I have to have an opinion on where social media is going, and I definitely have to be anticipating what's the next thing or how is this going to evolve. So the one thing I know for sure is that 20 years ago, businesses owned all the channels where people could use to communicate with them. and they were not communicating about them so much because there was not really, I mean, word of mouth at the local market was, or the local cafe. It was the only way where people could actually talk about a business or a brand. So that was like very limited in scope.
Mm-hmm.
And in the early 2000s, email came in and challenged that, and the web somehow as well, by making this available at scale. But at the time, businesses were still owning the channels. Email was something they can
Yep.
control, and they know where it's from, who it is that's coming from. They can put a system behind it with lots of agents and stuff. But when social media appeared, and when I say social media, people think Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, but I also think Yelp, TripAdvisor, G2 Crowd, forums, like anything that allows people to talk among each other about businesses or brands, or to talk to businesses and brands, or at least expect them to be there and respond. This may be called Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn today. Not going to change next year, probably not the year after, but could change in the next decade. But what's not going to change in the next decade, the decade after, whatever, is places for people to express themselves about businesses or to talk to businesses outside of channels they own.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not going away. This is here to stay. Just because it's how things work. Like that's how the internet works. It's a free place, so people are going to build places where people can express themselves, and businesses need to know, because it can be about them, and they want to be there and engage and course correct or fix the problem or all that kind of stuff. And this is the problem I'm passionate about, and I want to fix and solve. So I think that is what's not going away. That's not going anywhere. That's my opinion. Is Facebook gonna go somewhere? Is Snapchat gonna close shop and not be successful? Is TikTok gonna be the next thing? At the end of the day, I don't care that much about the specifics of which platform to do what and so on and so forth. What I know is the dynamic that's behind it is not
Mm-hmm.
going away.
Yep.
People like to talk, like to socialize, like to communicate, like to post things and reply, even though I'm a bit tired of replying to. but I was not so long ago, and if I had more free time in my hands, if I was not the CEO of an 80 people company, I would probably do more social media than I do today. And that is not going to change. That's the human nature to be
Yep.
social and do that.
Yep. Exactly. And that's for me back in 2008, as I watched people participating on these platforms, they were naturally addictive. And and then it wasn't just a one-off observation. I said, there's something really going on here. And that, I think for me, the term I would use on that is, it was the intersection of human and technology that we just hadn't had at our fingertips before. And basically this intersection of humanity and technology, which was really easy to use and free. So that was the other thing that I really went, wow, this is free. This is going to change a lot of things. And that's what the observation I made back then for me was, okay, this is going to have legs. I don't know what it is. I just need to play here. Essentially, that's what I did. I remember even being up midnight on Twitter, and I watched America wake up, because I'm from Sydney, Australia. So 11, 12 o'clock at night is when America starts waking up and getting on with the day. And I had the most fascinating conversations with people. I was at a World Youth Forum 18 months ago, hosted by the President of Egypt, and did a roundtable with him hosting that. And it's the negatives and the positives of social media were discussed at this roundtable. And yes, we've got problems with narcissism, but humans' narcissism, it just basically gives it attention and gives it scale. So I totally agree with it. It's not going to go away. It's just, it'll morph into different ways of doing that. Now we're in the middle of watching people do silly dance moves to pre-recorded music on TikTok for 15 seconds. And it's 10 to 20-year-olds that are doing this, right? And it's crazy. But for me, it's just people expressing themselves. And yeah, it's what are you wasting all this time just practicing these dance moves for a 15-second video? People don't mind a bit of attention. And I think it validates us as human beings, especially social media. It is a validation that we exist. And there's a mantra I use: I create, I publish, I exist. that validation of us as humans by creating and sharing it with the world in whatever way you like. I think you're right. It's not going away, and but it's going to evolve. Now, what do you think about the role of? And you must be doing a little bit of research on this, because you created a social media automation platform, right? So, and I remember when I started out on Twitter, I used very poor tools for doing it. I got basically given a really hard time on Twitter about using automation back in 2009, 10. Now we've got sort of AI and machine learning uh, maturing. The user interfaces for it are starting to evolve. Where do you think what's its role, and where do you see, and are you working on anything that's interesting in that space that you can divulge?
AI and machine learning?
Yeah.
Well, basically for what we do now, what we do today, AI and machine learning will be soon interesting to propose response to incoming posts and private messages. So people get to you, and by learning what you respond to certain things and how you respond to them, and you know, that it's I don't know. You use Gmail. If you use Gmail, you probably saw the auto completion that they propose
That's
the
right.
end of your sentence. That's pretty darn good. It works pretty well. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but it works maybe 75, 70%. That's enough so you can use it. If it was 10%, you would say that's a bother. Like I don't want something
Yep.
that's wrong 90% of the time. Let me get rid of that. Go in my settings and disconnect it. But when it's right 70, 75% of the time, it's good enough, so you want to keep it and start using it. So that's where machine learning and AI is today. 2 years ago, it was not there.
That wasn't.
It was 15, 20%. So it's getting smarter and smarter, and that's going to help get faster through your responses, through your support things. So that's on the engagement side, proposing a response. So instead of spending a minute and 15 seconds on drafting a response, you'll spend 15 seconds because the proposed response will only require changing 2 words and you'll be done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one, and that's we're not too far from offering that, because it's already, and Google offers API to its machine learning engine, so you can, with a little bit of money, you can benefit from that technology. You don't have to build it, because obviously it's super hard to build, like, as you can guess. I mean, building that is millions and millions. Like companies like mine, we don't have the resource. Not even our competition, by the way.
Yep.
Only companies like Google would. And then for content creation, there will be, if you have a lot of data about past success or past failure with the content you post on social media, those engines will be able to analyze and make you proposals. So again, that is also a potential reality pretty soon.
Yeah.
So it's not game changing. It's not groundbreaking. We're not flying people to Mars yet.
No.
But it's incrementally, we're going to improve the daily life of people who do that job.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing that you raised was actually, even simple email. It's actually helping with content creation, and basically the machine's helping you create content, and we're seeing that with the rise of video software as a service type companies that actually you can create videos from static images, right, at scale. Worked with Shutterstock over the years, in video out of India now. Sanket Shah and his team. These are some of the interesting things that help us scale our content, and it means that the machines are actually suggesting and also even building content for us just by giving them basic resources. So the content creation side is going to be interesting to watch. And you mentioned another term too, which the more data you get, the smarter the machines can be, because they can make sense of all this noise. And I read an interview recently, or an article, and it got into what's really behind. There's a war on globally to control 5G, because 5G is the technology to actually collect a lot of data at scale for the Internet of Things. And so that, because once you've got the data, then you can apply the big machines and the quantum computers that are emerging to actually make sense of all that noise and find the simplicity that the noise hides. So it's going to, and you're right, this is not game changing at the moment. This is going to be like a slow, warm bath that gets hotter and hotter that we're going to actually have to navigate. And Gmail's, a little, as you mentioned, that was a really simple observation. I think was great to share. So, so the trends in social media are basically, it's not going away because it gives everyone a voice and they can share their fun stuff. And what's not to love about that? So, yeah. So, just a couple of things. So, are there 2 or 3 things that you could recommend to entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs, as well as entrepreneurs that are already on the journey and are successful, but want to be more successful? Are there any sort of 2 or 3 pieces of advice that people could take away to apply that you've learned in the last 20 years?
Of course. So if I was to start a business again, the advice and the processes I would apply to myself and I would live by: number 1, become very, very intimate with your market, with your prospect. So you have to know the people you're going to sell to like you were sleeping with them.
Right.
You have to know everything about them, where they feel pain, where they feel pleasure, where they smile, where they cry, why, what makes them happy at their work, what makes them promoted. Well, like, you really have to know them really, really, really well. And that's it. Obviously it will take time, but before you start working on anything, be sure that you've talked to at least 10 people who are supposed to buy this thing you want to build, and you heard from them what they want to buy, not what you want to sell them. Don't go to them and say, "Hey, I'm building this. Are you interested?" Don't do that, because they say, "Yeah, nah, sounds good. I like it," and then
They
they will
don't
never
upset
buy.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
At least, or maybe they don't even know they're doing that, but that's a bias. When you're presented with something from someone, you tend to say, "Yeah, why not?" Yeah, make them talk and make them express directly or indirectly. Gosh, this is so painful. If I could find a solution to that. So that's the first one. The second one is you have to be absolutely passionate about fixing that problem.
Mm-hmm.
The problem you're solving, or the people you're solving it to, you have to love them, because this is going to be your life for the next 10 years, and a lot of that is going to be painful and difficult. So if you don't love what you're doing, you're going to give up because it's too hard. So you really have to love the journey. You have to love not the destination, or not how the success looks like once you get it.
Yep.
You have to love what it takes to get there, because this is where you want to be, even if
Yep.
you're not making money and it's difficult.
Yep.
And the third thing is, um, and I, again, I forgive myself, because at the time there were no mentors, there was no past experience. Nobody knew what they were doing. But in 2020, absolutely find someone to help you. Find someone who's done something that looks like what you want to do, who is a bit ahead of you. So they've been there, done that, with all the stuff that you're gonna experience in the coming months, in the coming years. And don't be afraid. Go to them and say, "Hey, I'm Jeff. This is what I'm planning to do.
Mm-hmm.
You've been there, done that. You could save me, so you could save my life, save me an incredible amount of time, energy, and wasting money. I don't want to take a lot of your time. I would like to talk to you 30 minutes once a month. Would you do that for me?" And you'd be amazed. Entrepreneurs love to help entrepreneurs. At least I do.
Yep.
I
And
can't do that with everyone, but I do that with a bunch of
yep.
other entrepreneurs. And because we've gone through hardship, so we know what it means and feels to go through hardship, and we know that, oh, if I had known that at the time, it would have saved me so much time. I would have been less miserable. So I'd like to share that with other people. That's why, at some point I was writing blog posts about our story and
Yep.
speaking at conferences about that. So go and find that person, that guy or that girl who's done that, and is going to be there for you when you feel low, and when you don't know what to do, and when you don't know, should I go this way or that way. They're going to give you the insight that will help you decide. So do that. Do those three things. Everything else, I mean, and there's a bazillion number of things that you need to know. But if you get those three things, at least things will be less difficult. You know, you will streamline a lot of those difficult times, and you will go through them with more ease.
Yep. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I think, and that's why we're here today, and that's why we're having a chat, is to help others on their journey, and to try and find out the essential things they should really be focusing on. The rest sometimes just feels like noise, doesn't it? So, Emric, thank you very much for sharing your story, or stories, and being an entrepreneur is certainly not for the faint-hearted. But if you love what you do and you're curious, it can
and
really...
that's okay too. You know, that's okay. If everybody was an entrepreneur on this planet, life would be horrible. So we need everyone. You know, that the planet and the society. We need people who want to lead companies and be entrepreneurs and take risk, and we need people who want to be passionate about their job and help those businesses to thrive and grow. So everybody has a role to play. Everybody has a story to have and tell. Like there's no hero syndrome of being an entrepreneur. If that's who you feel you need to be, perfect, go and do it. If you feel like afraid or that's not where you fit, that's totally fine too. You're probably amazing as well, but in a different way.
Yeah, and that's what's we're all humans on this planet, trying to make it sustainable as possible, and to make it enjoyable for us, for those around us. And it's a book that Steve Rayson talked about, which I've actually just finished reading. I think I bought it the other day on Kindle, downloaded it, read it within 2 days. Love is the Killer App. And I think one of the things that I've loved hanging out with you, Emric, is that one of your superpowers is that you know how to love. You're a Frenchman, obviously you do. So I have so enjoyed every time catching up with you is a joy. And I look forward to the next time we catch up, whether it's in Paris or whether it's in San Diego or the US or maybe even Sydney, Australia. We've got a great country here. Got a beautiful harbour.
I know.
And
I know, you do.
It's time to come over this side of the planet.
I need to visit.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
You.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing all your stories.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Emric. That's really fantastic. Yeah, so great to catch up again after 18 months of not having a chat. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while. Time flies by.
Yeah, it does. So I better let you go and get some sleep. Or you go to what's your normal bedtime? Midnight?
No, I don't. Actually, I sleep much more than I used to.
Okay.
I go to bed at 11 p.m. I wake up at 7, so I sleep 8 hours.
Yeah, I'm about the same. 11 to 12, and then get up at 7. Yep.
Yeah, I need 8 hours of sleep. I don't know if it's getting old, but I'm less resistant.
You need less as you get old, Emric. I can tell you right now.
But I know that at some point it will go revert. Like I will sleep less. Since I've been 40, since I've been in my 40s, I'm not resistant to late nights and working till 3-4 in the morning. I mean, it's much more difficult. It takes 3 days to recover from a 3 in the morning bedtime.
Yeah.
When I was in my 30s, I could do all night long and work the next day. Like I couldn't even think about doing that anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's good that I got some level of success and I don't have to.
Cool. So how's the family? The family good?
Yeah, the family good. A little one is very funny. He's 6 years old. I mean, I don't know if you remember how they are at 6, but my God, they are funny. It's like he's a show. Every day he's a show for himself. Like his mother and I, we look at each other and we're like, you hear what he just said? Yeah, I did. It's fun. Yeah, it's time consuming and it's
Yeah,
very demanding in terms of attention, but it's really, really fun. So
yeah, that's great. So how many do you have now? You've got a couple
I
from.
have the 6-year-old and the 19-year-old. So the 19-year-old is already gone. He's studying
Yep.
engineering, and he's a good balanced boy, but
Good.
is left home. So I'm
Okay.
his father, but I don't see him much anymore. Plus, I was divorced, so I didn't see him a lot as he was growing up. So
Yeah.
for me, it's the first time, but I'm with my 6-year-old. It's actually the first time that I'm sharing the day-to-day of a child, because my older one, he was with his mother for 2 weeks, and then I was having him every other weekend. So
Yeah.
that was not a lot. So it's a good, it's a good thing.
Sounds like you're enjoying it. That's great.
It's keeping you young. You have to.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're like, oh shit, I'd like to be on my own and not to have to take care of, go and do a bike ride with a 6-year-old and play Lego with a 6-year-old. But at the same time, you can't age too much because he's 6 and he's here and he's waiting for you and he needs you. So okay, let's
Yeah,
go.
no.
Let's be a dad and let's have fun and let's take our little bikes and go up the hill and down the hill and up the hill and down the hill and so whatever.
Well, it keeps you young
Mm,
by the sounds of it, and playful because kids just know how to play. I think sometimes
mm,
humans we um, forget how to play. I'm riding with my mate, cycling most Sunday mornings, and we both just love rushing down hills really fast on our bikes. You feel
mm,
like a teenager again, and
yeah.
so. Yeah, we got, and that's what I love too about, especially the industry I'm in. I'm hanging out with a lot of 20, 30 somethings. They keep me young. They stop me calcifying.
Mm,
Um, so, but yeah, it's good to have the family around. I'd miss that here. I live on my own now, and
mm,
so I have to go out and play at night really, because I need someone to play with, like people, friends. So,
mm. You bet.
um, so I'm going to pop
Where's your
into.
Where's your daughter now? Is she close or?
She's up on the Central Coast. Actually, all the kids are up near their mum. Don't live with my mum. Well, yeah, what a daughter does, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll be
So it's not.
navigating some stuff there as well. So, but
Mm,
uh, yeah, so still doing cycling and just trying to keep life fun. Doing a lot of reading and three things you mentioned about what you should be doing.
mm,
This podcast is actually ticks all those boxes. It's
mm,
like what's not to love about having conversations with your mates from around the world and make
mm.
new ones. And yeah, it's I'm having a blast here. I'm just trying to work out the processes and the business aspect of it. So that's
Mm,
but we're just having a ball here.
mm.
I actually had the podcasting equipment in the cupboard for over 3 years. No, it was like, oh God, I know it's going to be a lot of work. I
Mm,
went and I was, and I didn't have enough reason to do it. It was just another article. But what was interesting was um, I had a long lunch with Aaron Aegis, who lives in Singapore, a good friend of mine, over a bottle of Grange in Darling Harbour in Sydney on a beautiful day just before Christmas. And I said, "Look, I'm thinking of doing a podcast." He said, "Oh, you stole my idea." And he said, "No, I've just started. That's great." And he introduced me to some guys out of America that I haven't been using, but they had an ebook on what are the real benefits of doing a podcast. And when I read that, I went, "I've got to do this." It's because number one, the podcast is just about the relationship and building the nourishing those. And this social media is great for weak ties, but having a fireside chat with someone for an hour, and
You already had that. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what the podcast is about. And then went, I have to start this now. So here we are, having fun conversations with great people. So yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
It's good to see you definitely seem to enjoy it. That's great to see.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing some of those insights and being human. And
Yeah.
you're the first Frenchman on the show, Emmerich. So there you go.
And maybe the last. So I hope you get tons of downloads.
Well, that's the bonus. This is the real thing I love. So the rest will follow, as we both know. Okay.
Yeah. True.
Okay. Thanks, mate. I'd been really, really great to chat.
Have a good day and talk to you soon.
Okay. See you, Emric. Okay. Bye. Enjoy
Bye,
your
Jess.
holiday.
Thank you. Thanks. I will. Bye.
Bye.